Welcome to part two of a video about how I make music. I'll jump into Logic in just a second, but wanted to start out and kind of go over the couple things that I've done since the end of the last video. I mentioned that I was going to continue just working on arrangement, and that's mostly what I've done. I've kind of figured out that awkward transition between the slower or kind of like lower energy verse and the high energy chorus. I'll get to that in just a second, but I kind of use that as a spot for a little guitar riff that kind of ties them together. And then one thing I wanted to point out on the guitar is I did go ahead and re-record, probably about half of the guitar parts, including the chorus, just to get little cleaner takes, and some of them switched over to picking as opposed to just strumming with my fingernails. But another thing I did is something I do in a lot of my songs is I mentioned that when I'm writing the song, I generally just throw a capo on there and do some of the classic like chord shapes, C and G, and just figure it out from there. But once I know what's going on, in this case we were on the 6th fret with the capo, is I'll just count up to figure out what the actual chords are and then see if there's any other voicings that might make it a little bit more interesting. And in this case what I ended up doing is the very first chord, which was a G shape on the 6th fret, is actually a C sharp. So what I did is just I recorded like kind of a droning, just a different voicing of a C sharp chord, and put that over the entire chorus. And when we get into Logic in just a second, you'll kind of see how that sounds. I just think it gives it a little bit more of a fuller sound. And so I think the arrangement is coming along really well. I actually don't think there's going to be a whole lot of keyboard stuff happening. So I'm going to really just start recording the real vocals, because that'll give me a better idea of how much work is left to do on the mixing side of things to help those vocals ring out clear. So we'll head over to Logic now and I'll show you what all I've done since the last video, and then we'll record some vocals. So here's what's been happening in Logic. You can see I've started naming tracks to keep them organized. I've started creating summing stacks to where I can EQ things together if it's two guitar tracks that are just panned, or I can still EQ them separately. I usually end up doing both types of EQ just to get everything sounding right. There's a duplicate of the original guitar I recorded, but with an electric filter on it, and that's the one I ended up going with. There's those couple guitar riffs that I recorded right before the chorus. I split apart the drums that I recorded originally in one track into the type of sound, so they can all be EQ'd separately. I also put a little reverse cymbal build that kind of goes into either higher energy or lower energy parts of the track. Just starting to get it all together. Added kind of a bass recording, and I think I'll press play here and you can kind of hear how it's coming together. This sandcastle was built to last. Doing too much, we're not doing enough. If I break it into pieces, I'll be picking them up. When you say I'm not important, I'll be calling your bluff. Life isn't perfect, I think this is enough. And that is quite a new feeling. And there's kind of a portion that I just added on to the end of the chorus because it was feeling a little too short and kind of choppy. So I figure out the lyrics later, but it's just kind of like trying to get the feel of it down. And same thing here, the second verse is the one that I kind of came up with on the fly. So here's just the first pass at that, and then I'll refine that later. So I'll do a lot of this kind of stuff throughout the project, is just let it play through and kind of try to hear stuff on the monitors and just jump into a compressor or jump into the EQ or find a new plugin and try to fix stuff and make it sound better as it goes along. Alright, so now I'm going to record some vocals. I don't always do vocals before keyboards and kind of fleshing out the other little parts of the song, but in this case I think the arrangement feels pretty good and pretty complete without a whole lot of other stuff, just with the guitars that I've already recorded. So maybe it's going to be a little bit sparser of a song than I was originally thinking about, but I'm okay with it because I think it sounded pretty good. And before I get into the vocals, I kind of want to point out that this right here is like my favorite part of the entire process, because I feel like I've got a lot done. The rough mixing is feeling okay, and it's like, oh, I'm so close to finishing the song. It's going to be great. But then I always end up beating my head against a wall trying to get good vocal takes, and it just kind of gets frustrating from there. So I really like this moment where I feel like the arrangement of the song has come together. I know what I want the melodies to be, and I know, all the lyrics are written, and it feels like it's like just finish that last 10%, but it's really a lot more than 10% that's left to go, because there's recording the vocals, there's mixing, which takes forever. But like, to me, the fun stuff is really the stuff we've already done, and then from here it's like trying to polish it and finish it. And it's better than it normally is, because I feel like, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the song might turn out bad and I might decide not to finish it or whatever. But I like where it's at so far, and I'm definitely going to finish it. It's just a matter of actually putting in the work to get that done. So yeah, this is as good as it gets, and it's all downhill from here. So time for some final vocals.
Think I might be doing too much, might not be doing enough. If I break it into pieces, I'll be picking them up. If you say it's not important, I'll be calling your bluff. I know life isn't perfect, I think this is enough. And that is quite a new feeling. Maybe I'm done spending summers staring at the ceiling.
So I recorded some vocals, definitely better than the scratch vocals, probably not the final ones in a lot of places. But what I'm doing right now, and what you can kind of hear in the background, is I'm aligning the second take to the take that I felt like had better timing in terms of fitting with the drums and the guitars and all that, just to get an idea of like where we're at and what needs to be re-recorded if there's not a take with good timing, using the vocal line plug-in to do that. It's kind of annoying because every time you want to align a new take, you have to like let it play through an entire time so it can learn the right timing. But anyway, it's doing that, so we'll have a more realistic version of the vocals, certainly in terms of like having two of them doubled is going to give us a better idea of what the mixing is going to look like. So once that's done aligning, I'm going to leave the vocals alone for a little while, because I feel like I'm not singing super good right now. It's earlier in the morning, and I usually sing better when my brain and vocal cords are woken up. So I'll probably let those vocals stew for a few days, and then we'll get into keyboard recording stuff for the time being.
Three chords on my guitar, waiting for a tragedy to organize my life around.
So that's obviously not where that would actually go. Maybe go put it here.
My life around. But I'm starting to let myself home. It'll never come.
I think it's got potential. Let me record it in the right spot and see if. I don't know. I didn't think it was gonna be so like funky, but.
Waiting for a tragedy to organize my life around. But I'm starting to let myself home. It'll never come. Things have been good lately. Maybe it won't.
Didn't do a very good job of recording it, but let's see how it sounds.
It'll never come. Things have been good lately. Maybe
I don't know. It's a little weird. I'll sleep on it. So I did end up keeping that sound in there. I don't like it when all the verses sound all the same. So I always like to add maybe just a different strum pattern or a different texture or something. Don't always do it if I get lazy, but here I ended up liking that sound. And the first verse, I guess, lasts a pretty long time in this song before we get to the chorus. So I wanted to add some stuff that just comes in and keeps the interest up, so it's not just all monotonous until we get to the first chorus. And here's just some more example, I guess, of listening through the song and then picking out things to change. I guess I'm probably eliminating like a breath or something there, but it's just all these little adjustments, and yeah, a lot of staring at the screen and getting sick of how things sound and having to take a break and try again. But this is just how much of the back half of the process goes.
I know there's not a thing.
It's interesting to kind of listen back to these scratch vocals when I'm doing the voiceover and hear ideas that like didn't make it into the final one, or even ones where I think, oh, that was actually a good direction. I should have done the melody a little bit more like that. It's kind of interesting how it evolves throughout the process. All right, I'm in the car, and a lot of the music making process kind of happens in the car after the main tracks are laid down the way they are now. Mostly for mixing, I'll bring stuff, I'll, put the song on my phone, listen to it out of the phone speakers, listen on the car speakers, and kind of point out problems that way and go back to the computer and fix them. But that's not quite the point we're at now. I'm sure I'll notice mixing things and want to fix them, but what I'm mostly going to be doing, like for the next couple of days, having the song on my phone, is trying to like get the timing of the vocals really into my head. Because I feel like even though they're much better than the scratch vocals, the vocals I recorded earlier today, probably 80% of them just don't quite hit the timing the way I want them to. So I'll listen to the song in the car, I'll sing along, I'll try to figure out exactly how to get in that pocket and make the next recording go better. I feel like I always need to just have like one special good singing day. And the way to set myself up for that is to like really understand the timing and like have practiced it a little bit. And mostly that happens in the car. So I'm going to do that. And then when it's time to record the vocals again for real, hopefully, I will maybe show that. So I did end up getting those good vocal takes. And maybe this is not the case for actual good singers, but even after I've got the takes I know I'm going to use, there's a lot of processing left to do. The first thing I do, and what we're seeing here, is start fixing the volume, where I've like sung one line randomly too loud and the next one too soft, and I don't know, we'll see a version of this later where the automation for volume is all crazy with spikes and valleys everywhere. But the very first thing I need to do is just get it sounding reasonable. Like, I don't know why the natural take doesn't sound like all one thing, but I feel like for it to sound natural and sound like it's all one take, it actually needs to be automated the way we're seeing, to where the volume like consistently goes up or consistently goes down or stays the same.
Waiting for a tragedy to organize my life around.
So here I listened to the same section of the song a couple times in a row, and that is a really classic thing to do, is listen to the same thing a million times over and over, just to do minute tweaks and figure it all out. And so I'm not always patient enough to do it, but it really does help to take time off between kind of editing sessions so you don't just get super used to what you're listening to. Alright, so I've been listening to the song in the car, and I've been kind of chipping away at it in Logic. I did end up adding some kind of textural keyboards just really low in the background of the guitar, just to make everything feel a little bit more full. I've done a lot of like automation and processing for the vocals, taking down manually the volume in places where it was too loud and bumping it up where it was too quiet, to the point where now I think I'm ready for like the third vocal track to I don't know, there's still some notes that kind of like I realize there's too much high end and I need to sing a pass that has more low end and kind of mix that into the composite vocal. So I think I need that additional vocal take, which is what I'm going to work on today, and then maybe some harmonies if I can get that one good vocal take for the main melody. I've also started EQing a bunch of stuff. That's not really going to make it into the video a lot. I'll show like the final product, but it's just really boring. Like I listened to it in the car and realized like a certain track has a little bit too much bass or whatever, and so I turned down the bass. And just like realize that I turned it down too much and go back into Logic and boost it up a little bit. So it's just little adjustments like that until it finally gets feeling good. And then whenever we get to the mastering stage in a little bit, I'm sure some of those will have to be remixed because they sound weird now that the mastering's been applied. And I also recorded some synth parts, which is one thing I
like appreciate about not being a real musician who has to like care about what people will think about the songs is if I just find something that I think sounds cool, I can just put it in there even if people won't like it. And so I'm gonna play just a snippet of what's going on with that. I just found like a buzzy synth sound, and I always love how that sounds with acoustic guitars, even though it's kind of like weird and not the best to some people's ears, but I like it, so it makes it in the song. And here's what that part sounded like. You're a radar detector, I'm an actor turned director, a memory collector. I think we're gonna be just fine. So that's the end of the song. If people don't like it, they can just skip it. So now what I'm going to do, I feel like I've continued to kind of flesh out the arrangement, and I mentioned I need that vocal take. So I'm going to get that vocal in there, and then for the first time, I'll bring the song into a mastering session. And then since I'm getting close enough to the finish line that I kind of need to hear how that sounds. So I'll record the vocals, try to get some harmonies in there, and then we'll probably jump into the Logic screen recording so I can show you what the mastering plugin looks like. I lied, this isn't mastering yet. We're first going to take a look at the mixing session one more time just to get an idea of, as we kind of approach the end of the song, what the automation looks like and what the mixing looks like. You can see that I've continued to do a bunch of little automations. You know, that you can see those valleys where probably an S sound or a T sound was too sharp and the de-esser couldn't get it, so I would go in there and manually change something around. There I'm circling. There was a line where I think a D sound wasn't pronounced enough in the vocals, so I went in and recorded another take, making sure that I was enunciating that D properly, and then essentially used just that portion of the take to sort of stitch it into the composite vocal and make it sound like everything is all good. This bass ended up giving me a lot of trouble where it was kind of driving a lot of the loudness of the song, so I spent a lot of time messing with compressors on that particular track to try to figure out a way to have it still sound through but not have such a huge impact on the overall volume of the master track. See there, I'm EQing all the vocals together a little bit just to bring out some more of the high end, because that's like the main frequency that we kind of want to hear. And then a lot of the other, that's a bad example because that's in the same frequency as the vocals, but a lot of the other tracks are EQ'd just to carve out some space for the vocals, which is what you can see there. So that same frequency in blue is cut out a little bit in a lot of the other tracks to where the vocals can really sit in front of the song. There's not a finish line, so I'm learning to run the race that's mine. I'm an actor turned director, a memory collector. I think we're gonna be just fine. Yeah, so here just a processed vocal. I felt like I wanted that little pre-chorus riff to be different the second time than it was the first time. So I recorded just another lyric to kind of tack onto the front of that and made it sound different from all the other vocals just to add some interest and because I liked how it sounded. Maybe I'm done spending summers staring at the ceiling. I ended up keeping the third layer for the chorus. Not really a harmony like it's labeled, but just there were some portions of the chorus that weren't sounding super full. And then even after this little clip, I continued tweaking some portions of that weren't feeling just quite right. That's part of why I think the chorus sounds as full as it does in the final song. Is there's more instruments going on, but there's also an extra vocal take that we're hearing most of, whereas for most of the rest of the song it's just two vocal takes. And then just a quick look at the vocal line plugin for automatically aligning the timing of all those vocal takes together so you don't have to do it manually. So here we are actually in the mastering session as promised, just getting a look at the Ozone plugin, which I use for mastering, mostly for that dynamics match we're seeing there, which is loudness essentially. And I also put the loudness meter on there just to see what levels we're looking at. Supposedly negative 12-ish is what you're supposed to aim for like streaming services. And then what we're hearing is actually not the clipping of the song, it's just the CPU being overloaded by screen recording and the song at the same time. Alright, so I've just put the song into a mastering session for the first time. I went ahead and put it in the same session as the last song I made and just used the same default mastering settings that I used for that song, just so they can kind of sound similar, sound nice together. And I'm still going to export it and put it on my phone, listen to it in the car and all that. But I can already tell just from looking at the loudness meter and listening to it that the loudest parts of the song are way too loud relative to the softest parts of the song. Just a really big spread in terms of the dynamic range, so that the limiting is really trying to squash that loudest part and bring up the softest part too much. So I think I need to go back into the main mixing file and maybe just automate some of the volume or find a way to remove some frequencies to where just those natural sound levels are closer to each other. That way, when I send it into the mastering, we won't get any clipping or anything on the loudest parts. I wasn't listening in headphones, but I don't think it's clipping now because I turned the volume of the track way down to where the loudest parts sound decent. But then I imagine the softest parts are still going to be too quiet when I export it. So that's another thing I'll be listening to when I put it in the car, is how does the volume compare to just other real songs and other songs I've made in the past. Because I want to try to get it as close as possible, or really as loud as possible without messing up the dynamic range. So yeah, we're getting to the home stretch here, and hopefully with a couple more cycles of listening in the car, bringing it back to Logic, and then sending it through the mastering track, hopefully we'll have a finished song. It's not the same day as the last video. I just happened to be wearing the same shirt. I think it was also nighttime in that video probably. But I've been kind of tweaking the song. I always forget how easy it is to just mess up a song in mastering and just completely destroy all the hard mixing work. So as I always do, I'm kind of like trying to get the highest volume as possible to begin with, but then really backing it off because I decided I care more about like some of the dynamics reading through that would kind of get lost if we were normalizing the volume a little bit more. But anyway, I think the song is basically done. I'll go ahead and put it at the end of this video, I suppose, and see if it gets copyright striked in the future, because I obviously haven't released the song yet when I'm making this video. But yeah, I mean, I hope, especially the second part of the video, I hope this wasn't too like draw the rest of the owl situation. I just didn't want to show all the little like getting into the computer and doing tiny tweaks, because I feel like that's less fun for a video than like playing guitar or even like badly playing a drum pad. But yeah, so I don't think I'll miss recording this stuff and trying to edit it into a video. But now I've done it once and it can exist out there forever. So that's how I make a song. Worried it's all been B-roll so far. Artful shots of the sky or frozen ground. The same 3 chords on my guitar, waiting for a tragedy to organize my life around. But I'm starting to let myself hope it'll never come. Things have been good lately. Maybe it won't ever come undone. Engines idle much, might not be doing enough. And if I break it into pieces, I'll be picking them up. And if you say it's not important, I'll be calling your bluff. I know life isn't perfect, I think this is enough. And that is quite a new feeling. Maybe I'm done spending summers staring at the ceiling. I know there's not a finish line, so I'm learning to run the race that's mine. I'm an actor turned director, a memory collector. I think we're gonna be just fine. Too much, might not be doing enough. And if I break it into pieces, I'll be picking them up. And if you say it's not important, I'll be calling your bluff. I know life isn't perfect, I think this is enough. And that is quite a new feeling. Maybe I'm done spending summers staring at the ceiling.